It is September the 23rd, 2020. Our purpose for this meeting tonight is to metrics to be used and our objectives for our goal settings for our superintendent, our total employee, technically in the district. We will start now with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand, and on the count of three, we will say our pledge to the flag. 1, 2, 3. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the
republic which it stands,
one
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So just to update the board members, we received an email today about our students and their vaccinations, and we want to remind our parents and our caretakers that it is very important that your children receive their vaccination, update their vaccination shots and receive their vaccination shots. It is a requirement by New York State Health Department. Once we are able to go live or bring our children back into our building, I should say, it is going to be very important that our children are updated with their vaccinations. So we cannot ignore the fact that you must get these children vaccinated. Mr. Brown, do you have anything else to add to that?
No, not at this point. I know board members, as you explained, Mrs. Scottman, have been receiving phone calls from parents. So I wanted to share the letter from the state health department with you all, so you have that information. Whether we're hybrid or remote, students still need to have their vaccinations or risk being excluded from coursework.
Okay, thank you. With that said, this particular function of the board is handled by the Vice President of Executive Affairs. Before I turn it over to you, Mr. Petrucci, I'm concerned about the recent statistics that I saw about the lack of participation for the census in our city of Buffalo. When I looked at the map, I could see that suburban districts were on top of it, but it appeared that Buffalo was not. Mr. Petrucci, being that you work with the city, can you share some information about that with us today and encourage our people to move forward with getting those census completed? That's important.
Absolutely, President Cottman. Yeah, the U.S. Census is vitally important to the city of Buffalo. It impacts tens of millions of dollars that we will receive oftentimes every year for the next decade, so the impact is huge. Presently, we're just a little bit north of 50%, and our suburban counterparts are ahead of us by leaps and bounds. So, and many of our communities, many of our neighborhoods would benefit greatly from these dollars, and we need them. So I can encourage people to go. You can do it online. You can call. It takes about 7 minutes to do. It's not very long, but it's vitally important to the fiscal health of the city of Buffalo for everyone to complete it. And we're asking everyone to redouble their efforts to go out there, particularly because this year the time period's been truncated by more than a month. So we need to get this done as quickly as we can because the deadline's in 2 weeks.
One other thing, Mr. Petrucci, what type of resources could we lose if we do not participate in this census?
All kinds: transportation, road repairs, hospitals, community development block grants, all those things that impact the communities, particularly neighborhoods in the city of Buffalo.
And in addition to that, it impacts our school district as well, if I'm not mistaken.
It does.
We receive on a federal level.
It impacts everything, Sharon.
It impacts everything. I'm not sure, but I would encourage our board members to have that conversation. Use your social media pages to beef up the involvement. I am very concerned if we're near 50% at this point. So we really are trying to. Our district has taken on measures. They will be doing robocalls. The principals will be calling their. In addition to that, I'm going to ask the superintendent if you guys agree with me to do a robocall, encouraging our families our students, our scholars, and their families to participate in this. And if you guys are agree with me with that, and I think it would help to hear from him to say, you know, we need you guys to do this. Mr. Brown, do you need to add anything onto that?
Nope, I think you covered everything, you and Mr. Petrucci, so thank you very much.
With no further ado, I'm going to turn this over to our Vice President of Executive Affairs, Mr. Lou Petrucci from the Park District.
Thank you, Madam President. So one of the most important things that a school board does is to evaluate their superintendent. And this is a unique year. This year is unlike any that any of us have ever encountered. So I want to make sure that this evaluation got the diligence that it deserves. And because it's such a special year, we're going to have to think things a little bit differently. As I was going through this, I wanted to get everyone together to have like an in-depth discussion. I know that there was discussion that maybe we could do this as kind of an adjunct to a board work session, but it's going to deserve more than an hour this year. And I just want to give it the time, and I want to be deliberative. I want everyone to be thoughtful and purposeful because it is a unique year, and I want to make sure that the evaluation reflects it. Now, 1 hour for any one of us on this board can talk for more than an hour about the Buffalo Public Schools or about any one of these various topics. So that was the other reason why. I want to make sure that we had something that was separate and distinct. But this is about the board tonight, and this is about the board's objectives. What are our priorities as a board? And what do we want to see going forward? Now, I know it's a little bit earlier than we've done in the past. I know that the information from SED hasn't been unembargoed yet, so we haven't had the presentation on where we ended up the year last year. But I think it's a good time to begin this process of what are the board's priorities for this school year going forward, because we're already a month into it. And, it's only a 10-month school year. So 1/10 of the year is over already. So I'm going to discuss two things. One would be the process going forward, and the second would be the actual topics. So process. So I thought we could have a meeting tonight to discuss, our priorities as a board. What are the objectives? What are the metrics that we're looking for? What are some of the things that we're looking for? We would then ask the superintendent kind of to report out what the status of the district looks like. Where did we end up last year? And again, there's some caveats attached to that because we migrated to distance learning. There were some additional challenges. There were a variety of different conversations with SED and what was going to be required. So again, we have to take that into consideration. But I just want to see where we ended up. We've heard rumors where we may be with respect to our graduation rate and some other things. Hopefully it's good news, but I want to see where we're at. After that, I'd like to take our objectives, where the district is, and kind of do a synthesis as to what this final reporting document will look like. So we're all on the same page so that we know where we're at going forward. So that was kind of the process that I thought that we could do, as we develop this matrix to evaluate the superintendent's performance for the 2020-2021 school year. And then the other thing my other topic so that we have continuity in terms of our comparisons, that we kept many of the evaluations, if not all the evaluations from last year, but acknowledging that because this year is going to be special and unique, and because the board has brought some different things to light, and the board has demonstrated that they may have some new and some different objectives, that these are things that we may want to add to the evaluation as well. So some of the things that I was thinking about, and I'll just put them out here initially, equity. Equity has been a priority for this board. We really should define and quantify that. What does equity mean, so that we can have a report out on it? Do we want to incorporate, and the board's been very proud of the CLRI initiatives. We've been very proud of MBK and other things. Is this something we want to report out on and see where we're at, how we can do things better, et cetera? Social emotional learning, the impact on children. Think about our kids, what they've experienced, what they've had to go through from March of last year to the present. And how do we quantify that? How do we report out on that? Because that's very important, because it's impacting so many of our school children. I would be remiss, and Board Member Woods would kick me underneath the table if she was here, if I didn't mention fiscal solvency. Because this year we are going to have many fiscal challenges. We are lucky to have a a truly talented fiscal side of the shop, but that fiscal solvency and going forward, that may be something that we want to report out on, some greater detail than we have in the past. And the last, I would say, modality, remote learning, because this whole remote learning, which is something new, connectivity and devices and the challenges that we've had, the successes that we've had, and then also if we're going to transition to in-person, how does that look? How do we go back? Those types of things. Is this something that we want to take a look at and devise metrics to kind of evaluate the superintendent? Did he have a plan? Did he execute it? Those types of things. So those were kind of the broad strokes that I was thinking of. Of course, this is your meeting. This is not my meeting. This is a meeting for all of us to come together and to define, again, what the priority and objectives are for the Board of Education. So at this point, I will open it up for questions. I will open up for comments. I'm going to take notes. I will type up the notes, and then I will present them all to the fellow board members afterwards. Okay? Darren, you look quizzitive.
No, not at all. No.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
I just thought what you explained in the process, I'm like, that's very tight, Mr. Petrucci. So absolutely.
Wow, thank you. I appreciate that. Board members, do you want me to, any particular order that you want to speak? Do you want me just to call on you alphabetically, or should we, why don't we do alphabetically? That sounds great. We'll do something a little bit different, which I believe, if that would be Kathy Evans Brown.
Do that. But anyway, so I think you rolled out well-defined, overarching plan, for the goals for the superintendent. I like the fact that we're putting emphasis on equity and what it means. I know that our president presented resolution just about a month ago that seemed to be very distinct, and I'm sure that we can pull out some of the there's in there and infuse it into what we're talking about here in terms of equity. Because, a lot of times I think when we talk about equity, everything we do should include equity. In terms of, for example, when you talk about social distancing, I'm not social distancing, that's in my brain. When you talk about devices, when you talk about internet, that kind of thing, it has to be, equity included so that every child have privy, to those devices to be successful. Then when we talk about social emotional experiences of children, every last child is important in this area because of the two pandemics that they have experienced. So when we talk about social emotional, that includes our special ed students, that includes our middle students, and that includes our high school students. So it includes all of the students. And when we talk about fiscal solvency, of course, we're faced with a 20% cut by the state. I don't remember when, but it looks like it's going to be this year, the 2021 year. So we have to look at, I know the president mentioned overtime. That's an area that we need to look at because is it necessary, for example. So there's, a lot of challenges when you talk about 20% decrease in funding. Urban districts have always been underfunded, so that would affect, our teaching force. That would affect many things, And then lastly, in terms of quantifying it, I think once we get an idea of, making it simple but clear I think we'll have a good product. So that's
Okay.
my take on it.
Is there anything additionally, Kathy, that you think that we're missing? I mean, you have a doctorate in education. I'm being deferential here. Is there something at this point that you think that we need to add or something that's missing?
Well, my passion has always been looking at reducing dropout rates. And when we look at 400 students per year, now I don't know if that's defined, but it certainly sounds like it's been reported that we're losing 400 kids a year. That's an issue. And so we need to look at how we can put interventions in place to combat that particular area. So I have a passion with that, especially when we talk about predominantly Black males. I'm a mother of male children, 3 that I birthed and 2 that they call them bonus children. Sorry, sons, but that's what you are. But so when we talk about children, it could be done. I mean, my male children did education in this district. So I have a problem when kids do not complete high school. Failure shouldn't be an option here. And so we really need to pay more attention. I know we're doing some things. We need to do more.
Okay. All very important points. Thank you, Dr. Evans-Brown. Mr. Hurd, you are next up.
Good evening, everyone. Some of the things that to start off with talking about, what I feel that the district need to work on and improve on, and because of the COVID situation, COVID-19, how it affected our community, other communities around the country, other mid-cities that lie within the U.S., we all facing the same factors with technology. We all the same issues that's going on with remote learning, and it seems to be a continuous conversation through all the articles that we read or news articles that we see, and I really believe this is a perfect time to rethink education. I hear a lot of our community members talk about rethinking education. How can we improve on education? How can we improve on getting the output of education? And that's one of the things that we are faced with today that this district has been working with. And I'm very proud of this district for rethinking education and thinking out of the boundaries with our CLRI program. I mean, they did a wonderful job with the Black Lives Matter course and teaching linguistics and regional thinking amongst this community. Is something that, as growing up, I was told folklore, folk tales, about how, things really occurred, and, this is things that we did. I remember going around when you talked about Christopher Columbus, and we made these little hats out of construction paper, and some of us were Indians and some of us were Pilgrims, and we got together and enjoyed, our love for one another, and they sold Long Island for some beads, and then we had Thanksgiving on First Harvest. That's how Thanksgiving was formed. And these are the things that we were taught growing up, and I love to see about rethinking education and how can we further advance rethinking education. One thing is the type of schools that we have. The programs, we need new programs to fit our environment, to fit the job clusters that's here in our community and across the nation. Most of those are in technology. A lot of those are in nursing. Some are in business management. A lot of our CTE programs are addressing some of that right now. We need to robust our program in teaching development. We always talk about that we have a lack of minority teachers within our district, with a population of 84% minority children to 87%, counting on children, that come from different countries, and, that's come here with the English language learners. And we're looking to build upon that. What customs can we adapt from their customs? What can we learn from these children and bring into our education so they can feel inclusive? We also talking about teaching development. We need a robust teaching development so that we can educate our kids and work with other universities about formulating teaching programs so that they can come back into our district and teach kids. We have a lot of young teachers out here. We have a lot of kids that I work with the My Brother's Keeper program or the Breaking Barriers program. Church groups, that wants to be teachers, that want to be educated, very smart kids. We have the smartest kids in the world right here in Buffalo. These kids are very intelligent, and we need to adapt to these fields, especially in technology. I believe that working with colleges in these programs, I believe that we can schedule a more robust plans about meeting with the college presidents and the college programs and see how our education can adapt to theirs. There's no reason why the public school system shouldn't have an upper hand on any other type of educational facility in Western New York, due to the amount of students that we have and to the networks that we have with Buffalo being one of the cities that's having the most colleges, percentage, in the area than most other cities. We can name the colleges. Another thing I like to see is more of leadership. One of the biggest complaints that I have from the community was leadership from our district. That goes from the board all the way into the schools, Buffalo Public Schools, and administrative. I know that this is hard times, and we've been pressed against the wall trying to figure things out and figure out how to move forward. And the whole country's been upheld by this. We all are seeing the same type of report coming back from communities, but our community need more leadership. When I say leadership, I believe that we need to have more listening to the community and hearing out their thoughts and concerns. We need to work on more about listening to the teachers. I know there's a chain of command that we have to follow, that teachers go through the principals, and the principals will go directly to the administrative staff and then to the superintendent. But we need an ear, and as a board member at large, I receive calls and talk to a lot of teachers, and being a former educator here in the city of Buffalo, teachers have a voice, and they really think we need to take your ear on hearing those voices, and because they're on the front line, they're working with our children. They're our children mentors, and we're educating them. And education comes more than just principle of a subject matter. It comes in knowing the child and understanding the child and seeing what the child, growths are, and positive, negative, of their ability to learn and ability to adapt to situations and help them through situations, and being mentors and counselors to our children. So that's some of the things that I'm looking at. I will yield my time to about the type of schools that we have. I believe we need to advance more, as I said earlier, to like the nursing programs, to the CTE programs. I know our CTE programs need some more adaptations to it to fit our sports programs, as far as having the access for educating community to like coaching certifications and refereeing certifications. That's one of the things I like to see added on, this year, and it's something that we should be able to do that wouldn't cost us a lot to do it, and actually we can get monies back if it's a CT program, if it's a paid program, if we're looking forward to invoke that status upon it. I know we spoke earlier about the social emotional learning, that impacts our children. And, to this day, we're still receiving phone calls and, complaints from parents and children how education should be, or maybe some changes could be made. There's just that listening ear that we need right now. And also having not just a governing ear, but a ear of certainty. The last thing I would like to talk about is adapting our community to look into trying to find a formula that they can fill some of our RFPs, as far as with our community, our pursuit of community, our pursuit of community involvement through our churches, through our leaders, through other organizations that's here, that can come into our buildings and look to help, solve some of the issues that we have, as far as after school programs, community projects, community school projects. So those are just some of the things that I wrote down that I felt that we should concentrate on and look upon as a district and as a board. I didn't say that, don't get me wrong, I didn't say that this board don't show leadership. This board does show a lot of leadership. We answer calls every day, and I'm very proud of each and every one of our board members and our administrative staff members. Dr. Darren Brown Hall, who answer calls all day and all night, in the middle of the night and weekends, and administrative staff who comes up with Dr. Cash. I mean, we have a very entangled system, and just some clarification about about our work that we do. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you, Mr. Hurd. So there's a lot here, Terrence. So one of the things that I will try to do is to take your comments and to convert them into a question or a metric. So along the lines of, so you talked about rethinking education. Now is the time for us. It's an opportunity for us to rethink the many ways in which we do. So we could ask, what's an example of the district rethinking of education? You asked about trying to create more robust teaching and more teaching development. What can we do in terms of our teacher development, all the various things we've done. The constant question that we've had about recruiting minority teachers, we can ask the question, what have we done to recruit minority teachers, and provide examples that the district has done to increase the number. And the same with, with respect to, you had mentioned about colleges, what has the district done in terms of outreach to our local colleges and how we partner? So that's what I'm going to try and do, is take some of your points, Terrence, and then convert them into a type of objective and or metric that we can use as part of an overall superintendent evaluation or district evaluation. So, yes, Terrence.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, you're welcome. Board Member Jay. Jay, how are you this evening?
Hi, good evening, Lou and everyone. So I want to bring our focus back to what we're here tonight to talk about, which is the evaluation. We need to look at two things. We need to look at the goals that we've established as a board, which are in the first document that you sent. And those are 5 goals with some subcategories underneath. And secondarily, we're reviewing the document that we've been using at least since I've been on the board. I don't know if it was used prior to me being on the board, but this is my 6th year on the board. I'm sorry, 5th year on the board. So we've talked about this tool. We've had numerous conversations about this tool over the years. We've talked about it with the previous board. I don't know that we've had any in-depth conversations with this board, but we've never really arrived at a consensus as a board on what sort of a tool might be better than to measure the metrics that we're attempting to measure than what we've always used, at least that we've used since I've been on the board. So those are the 2 issues that I think we need to be talking about tonight. We're here to talk about the goals that we've established for the superintendent, and we're here to talk about the tool that we use for the evaluation. Okay? So let's dial it way back to that. Number 1, when I looked at the goals that we've established for the superintendent, those were goals that were established pre-COVID. So my thought processes when I looked back, and I'm not saying that now Lou, you weren't, I don't think you were a part of, no, you weren't. I don't think, maybe you were. Were you a part of when we had the training with the 2 gentlemen who came in from Albany who taught us how to set goals for the superintendent? Were you there for that?
I was on Saturday, just for that Saturday morning session, Hope.
Okay. All right. So they gave us a lot of really good instruction of how a board is supposed to set goals for the superintendent. And the structure that's in that document that you sent around is really reflective of how they taught us how to set goals. They need to be very clear. They need to be very concise. They need to be measurable. And we can't overwhelm the superintendent with, 16 million different goals or metrics, because it's just not helpful, and we're not going to be able to have a good way to measure that. So while I appreciate, you reflecting back at Terrence, wanting to put some of that stuff into measurable objectives, I think we need to stay focused, Lou. We need to really look at the goals that we have previously established, because we put a ton of energy and effort into that as a board to determine what we thought were the goals that should be measured, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So now my question is how many of those goals that we agreed upon as a board are still, number one, relevant in the age of COVID? Because as I looked at the last 3 objectives on there having to do with suspensions and things of that nature, while I'm not saying those aren't issues that are issues and that have always been issues, we're dealing with other more emergent issues that have, that being in a virtual learning situation are things that I think, unless we are able to address some of those issues, and perhaps those issues are going to rise to the top of things that need to be looked at and assessed and measured over the course of this very unique and unusual year, because we're not going to have the data available for suspensions, short or long-term suspensions, because our kids aren't even in school right now. But
right.
What can we measure? Like, what are the goals that we want to put forward for this very unique, unprecedented year? And how are we going to determine whether or not our children are benefiting from the, our new virtual platform, and whether or not they're learning, and whether or not we're providing, Terrence touched on some of it, whether or not we're providing enough opportunity for our kids to learn in this setting. How are we measuring synchronous versus asynchronous learning? How are we measuring whether or not our children are actually benefiting from what we're able to give them? How are we going to have to tweak that? Because we all know, I think we can safely say at this point, we are not going back to business as usual. We are in a whole new, different realm. And we are adjusting, and we are changing, and we are learning, and we are growing, and we are trying. And I don't want to discredit or discourage anybody. I think that the Buffalo Public Schools has done just as good of a job, if not a better job, than some of the other local districts. Okay. But we still, now what's the rule of measure? What are we measuring? What are we even trying to, how are we going to evaluate we are providing an education that our students are, number one, able to take advantage of, and number two, whether or not they're able to learn in these new, this new virtual learning environment or hybrid environment or whatever it is that we're providing for them. So I really feel like, the goals that we had previously established are pre-COVID. And while there are some things on there that I think are still relevant, I think it needs to be adjusted to reflect our current reality. That's my thoughts.
No, Hope, all valid points. And it does, because there are things like regularly visit schools. Well, we're not expecting that. But is there something along the same lines in terms of conducts a virtual meeting or the amount of people that have completed a survey, those types of things? Yeah, I agree. I just wanted to keep some standards so that we have that continuity year to year. So whether it's ELA or graduation rates or something along those lines.
No, and I'm not disagreeing with that, Lou. Obviously that's the backbone of public education, but we are in an unprecedented time. And we need to adjust, and we need to flex with the reality of the situation that we're faced with. If we're using an antiquated evaluation tool that isn't even evaluating what's actually going on in the terms and as far as how we're educating our students, what are we doing? Right. We need to adjust, and we need to adapt. I see Sharon has her hand raised.
Yes, Sharon.
I want to go back to what he originally said he was doing. He was asking the board members for what their priorities were. And then we were going to work on the metrics and the objections. And so from what I'm seeing is that he's putting together, from what he said, he's putting together a flow sheet, I guess, of something that says what the priorities are for the board. Okay, and so board members, I would appreciate if you, as you speak, that you don't do a dissertation, that you don't go on and on and on. It just, we're trying to get this point. So far what I've seen is a general pattern here. Lou listed his, I'm just watching Kathy's, I saw hers, and then he said he was going to the metrics, which would determine what tool you want to use, and then we would set the objectives. That's how he set the meeting. So I'm not sure where we're off at this point, but the idea was to find out what the priorities were for the board so that we can move forward and put the metrics together and set the objectives. That's how I understood it. And so this also gives your constituents an opportunity to hear what you are going to be working on in the future as well. Okay, because if you set it as a priority, I would imagine that you're going to assist with making sure it happens. That's what I would talk about.
But along the same lines, Sharon, I get it, but also the tool itself. And I see, I know what Hope is saying, that some of the categories we have and some of the things that we've done in the past, they're out the window. Things are going to be completely different this year.
I agree, 110, 102, 300%. And I can tell you one thing, if I remember right, we didn't really set these goals per se. If I remember right, these goals were given to us. And we accepted them because of a time factor, if I remember right. So this is the first time that this board has really
worked on together, Sharon. Those are goals that we set, that we worked on together. We devised as a board. Those 5 objectives
were given to us by Dr. Cash. We did not give them to him. Okay, and so he gave us, this is the same thing from the previous year. This is from the previous year. I remember these are the same carryovers over from the previous year. So really ever do what we're doing now, where we put it together from our perspective, because as I'm listening to what you're saying, you know, hearing some common threads, also, you know, got to bring it in. True enough, Hope, we've got to bring it in so that we quantify and qualify exactly what we're saying. And we do have the minds on this board to help us do that. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it pulls together.
So I mean, I appreciate your comment, but I just want to finish my thought and then I'll be done. Okay. So, but we have to keep it, I think the structure and the way that we, you know, devise the goals to keep it to, and I mean, Darren, you were a part of this, you remember, I mean, he said 5, like we don't want to get too far away from ourselves here. So we need to narrow it down and have it be 5, you know, in some subsets to that, like the way it's structured now.
Mm-hmm.
But, and just so that I can, the one last thing that I want to say, I think one of the biggest issues that parents are struggling with, I mean, they're struggling with so many issues right now, but one of the issues I think that parents are struggling with is the way, how are we even determining like attendance in the age of COVID? How is that being regulated? How is that being throughout, you know, this synchronous and asynchronous learning model? Because I think that a lot of, and I've heard this anecdotally from so many people, that their kids are logged on, but yet they're not being counted. And then they're getting these phone calls from the teachers that are going to the parents, and the parents are asking the kids, and the kids are saying, I was logged on, but you didn't see me, and my microphone was off. And like, there's just so many, I think, challenges that people are having with regard to this virtual learning platform. And I don't want to see children, our students, their time, if they're being docked for time or not being counted and having all of these unexcused absences. I don't think we have a real good way. And again, I'm not faulting anybody. We're learning as we're going here. So, but I mean, attendance was one thing when we could physically count people in. It's a whole nother thing when we're trying to do that in a virtual setting. So anyway, I'll finish with that.
No, thank you, Hope. Those are all valid points. One of the things that I've heard is the lost assignments, or the attendance versus the engagement, where a child might have logged in, but they're not very engaged with the teacher. You know, they're on their cell phone or they're doing something else. That seems to be, I hear that from a lot of teachers. Yes, Johnny Smith was there, but, you know, Johnny's mind was someplace else. And, you know, he had a blanket on, his head was on a pillow. You know, he didn't really look like he was participating as fully as he should have been. Things along those natures. But regarding the metrics or the overall evaluation tool, yes, it does need to be updated to reflect the current circumstances. Very good point, Hope. Next, Jen. Board Member Mikosi, you are up.
I believe Kathy had her hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kathy, I didn't see it.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on what Hope was talking about with the attendance. I concur with her. I know today, a kid was online with the teacher and he was getting his hair cut. And then, but I really wanted to talk about this immunization process. There's a number of kids who are being booted out, you know, of courses, out of their courses, literally, because they have not gotten their immunizations. And it was an interview last night or early this morning with two parents talking about how their 6th grade child was booted out. She was in a lesson, and then all of a sudden she was, you know, booted out because she had not gotten her immunizations, and the mom is in the process of taking her, but she couldn't get in 2 weeks. So we have to really consider what's going on, because a lot of these physicians and doctors aren't normal. They don't have normal hours, and so it takes time for these people to get their kids in for appointments. I know personally, my family practice physician is not, you know, seeing patients in his office, but you know, I meet with him like this, you know. So we have to, you know, really consider some of what's going on and not boot kids out of class, because for Christ's sake, we're doing remote. I mean, who are they going to affect? And I get that New York State has this law, but just saying that it did happen.
And it happened to a Buffalo student, Buffalo Public School student?
Yes, ma'am.
I have a problem with that. I really do.
I did too. That's why I brought it up.
Okay, I really do.
In
Because
her
of a parent.
lesson, in English class, and was literally booted out. And I know this because this is one of my staff's.
So if we please could, because this is something a lot of districts across the state are, you know, unfortunately having to deal with, because the law is the law. That's why I want to share that letter for you from the Department of Health, because along with the law, there are fines. So if the district is audited, there is a financial implication that we get fined if we have students who are not properly vaccinated. So I don't know that we want to take up, it is a serious concern for everyone involved. I get it.
Absolutely.
But that's why I wanted to share, after I spoke to Ms. Mikosi yesterday, I wanted to share the letter from the Department of Health, because they did memorialize that and sent it out to the school districts, because we do have to adhere to that law. So that's why I sent it out to the board members.
It's crazy.
So, no, and thank you, Darren. Not that it isn't important, it's very important. Ms. Mikosi, objectives, what are the board's priorities? What is your district priorities? What are priorities for you?
Hi, everybody. How you doing tonight? I'm looking at, you know, priorities are enormous right now, right? So to choose certain priorities over others, it's incredible. Right now, I was looking at, and I was actually preparing, because of the materials that were given to us, I was preparing kind of what we should reflect on according to the goals that we have. But if we're looking, and I just want clarification here, are we looking to kind of, you know, redo the goals altogether? Because if that's what we're doing, then I have comments for that as well. Or are we trying to correlate what we're prioritizing to the goals in place?
So both, Jen. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to take these and modify these to reflect the reality of the situation presently, because some of these things just aren't applicable in our present COVID situation. However,
Right.
this is a unique year, and we do have some unique priorities that we've never seen before. So that's why I brought up the earlier ones. But yeah, so I know that there are a variety of things, but we have limited resources. And what are your priorities going to be?
So my priorities are making sure that our narratives and our messaging is clear. We have communication gaps that are there. There's no fault, as Hope pointed out, as I think we all pointed out, and across this country and everybody's workspace, everybody knows that there's just no clear cut anything happening. So in order for us to be very clear with our next steps, even if it's reiteration over and over and over again, and maybe not just robocalls. If you see a robocall, a lot of times parents don't pick them up, right? They know the number. This is reality. How do we go about making sure our reopening plans are always out there? You know, we're doing it as board members. The district is very diligent. You know, I want to commend Tanja Williams and Dr. Ramona Reynolds and everybody who's making sure that we're doing this. We're feeding students. I really feel that for me, priority is to uplift the things that we are doing. You know, you don't have to be a Buffalo Public School student in order to receive food in time of need like this. So maybe we are looking at, you know, but we also need to address, you know, there's a technology issue across this entire country. How are we, and how is the community? And the community is listening. So I'm pleading to community to help assist with the messaging. Everybody talks to everybody. Everybody's on social media. Help us to get these messages out that, you know, we're working to get all of the devices from pre-K to first grade, and there was a backlog, and we're doing the best that we can. Let's not promote, well, we don't have them yet, so BPS is a horrible district. This is not, you know, we have to work on narratives. My priority is to make sure that we start being more, you know, uplifting and positive throughout this entire, you know, pandemic on all levels, and that we do our best to bring community in and answer any questions. The immunization piece is definitely huge. And yes, I talked to Dr. Brown Hall yesterday, and I asked whether or not it was possible to see, knowing that it's a law, what can you do if it's a law, but can we see whether or not, if you have a scheduled appointment down the line, is it possible to get an extension? Like, these are things we're working on, and these are the messages we should be putting onto the district. Do we have an answer yet? No, we don't, and everyone is dealing with this. You know, I really feel like right now, communication is absolutely key. And I feel like there has to be a respect factor between everybody. It doesn't matter whether you're district or not. You know, a lot of us district are parents, and we're dealing with the same thing everyone else is dealing with. So how do we work together to make this work for everybody? I mean, I don't know how to, you know, when you say priorities, I can't categorize that. I can't put that into like numerical value, but to me, this is huge. It may seem like an overarching just as something, but this is huge. We need to communicate as a team. We're doing well. This board, compared to the board last year, is miles ahead of where we were. And even with this, you know, we, regardless of, you know, here and there, we're all on the same page with what we want to do. So priorities for me is to make sure that we address concerns. And when we address concerns, we make sure that we're all addressing them with each other. If somebody comes to one of us, it could be a concern that a constituent in someone else's district is sharing or also has. So how do we come together to make sure we're communicating to everyone? How do we help the district? And then in turn, we need the district to make sure that, you know, they know there's avenues in order to communicate this. It doesn't have to be wrapped up in a bow and handed to us like a gift. Like, keep us informed as we go along with every step you make. This way you know, we can put this out back to the public. We're doing a good job of that as is. We're doing the best we can, but I just want to make sure that, you know, we make that priority for me. Okay. As far as the 5 goals that were already listed, I looked at them, you know, again, I would like to see the district, and this is It's personal, but it's also what do we do when it comes to these testing? Can we put something out there to say that, can we put a waiver on state testing? Good God, that state testing and what it is and what it means is almost, how do you test students that are home dealing with this right now? Like that's already stressful. So what can we do in order to figure out the testing mechanism? It's not the same. It's not, I'm not saying opting out and all that. No, that's a whole nother fight. I'm saying the testing itself, when people are just dealing with all of the mentioned already, how to get on, kids are getting on in certain ways. You have folks that are traumatized and don't want to show where they live or how they live, and don't have a backdrop, and these are all serious concerns. So I feel like the district has really been concentrating on health and wellness and this emotional, and trauma-informed care. But how do we solidify that? And how do we make that real, in a 1, 2, 3 step? And how do we help the district? How do we assist in making that happen? And then, how do we report it out? So all of that is like metrics and priority for me. We have to read what's happening. When the governor and the powers that be puts the fact that, here's a pandemic, now you districts figure it out, and reopen, don't reopen, figure it out, do this, do that, and don't do this, don't do that. We're really rolling with the punches right here. And I feel like we are doing the best that we can, but we need to prioritize how we're going to make this work moving forward. I would personally, and what's coming to me, since we're talking about what folks are bringing to the table, what does October 30th look like? You know what I mean? What happens when, that deadline of when we're supposed to look into reopening, what's the process right now? How are we looking into how we're measuring what's been working so far for the last 4 weeks? And how do we bring that forward? I like to see, more of a, well, this is where we are right now. Just like an update. We do the weekly brief with Dr. Cash. If we can do a weekly, okay, here's where we are with reopening, that goes to everybody, that would be absolutely amazing. And it would help me to bring to my constituents as well.
Can I just say one thing on that?
Yes, please, Dr.
Absolutely. Working with Dr. Evans Brown, that is going to be the topic at her October 7th student achievement meeting. Dr. Cash is going to give an update about where we're at with remote learning and what it might look like, what metrics we'll be looking at and things like that, to possibly transition to a gradual hybrid model. So Dr. Cash will be discussing that with the board at the October 7th student achievement meeting. Dr. Evans Brown has approved that for her agenda.
Beautiful. And that's great for that meeting. And like I said, we have these meeting spaces to do it, but if we can just put out a bulleted blast on the news channels, like reopening, we're still looking into reopening. We've had some success, just some type of bullet points that keeps people updated throughout that time. I'm so sorry. I'm going to close my porch door. I'm sorry. Good God. I live on a busy street. It looks like there's a motorcycle club going down the street. I apologize. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Since we're not really reflecting on those, I'm totally 100%. I'm figuring out a new tool for, I'm down for that. Let's figure out another tool. But when we think about these objectives and we think about where we are now as opposed to when we first put these together, we have a structure in place. Let's look at what we've been doing since this all started, and let's look at the real great accomplishments that we've made and really highlight those. We're under attack by some people. There's articles that are going out that are absolute garbage, and we're trying to stay, let people say what they want to say. No, I'm about done with, and I will put this out there as far as my personal, I am about done with having to defend this district with everything we've been doing to folks that have really done nothing but come in really small numbers and say absolutely nothing. I'm done with it. And I'm going to get to the point where I'm going to start speaking on a whole nother level. And I don't want to disrespect myself or any of you all like that. So I would like for the district to prioritize anytime negativity comes at us, we come back with everything we've been doing to shut that mess down. That's priority number one for me. I'm going to stop right there.
Thank you, Jen. All right, I'm just, you talk as fast as I do, so I'm trying to take notes while you're speaking. Thank you very much, Board Member Cozy, for your comments. They're greatly appreciated. Dr. Rivera, the floor is yours.
Okay. One sec. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, we can.
Yes, okay. I'm having a little technical difficulties tonight. What I'd like to talk about is I'd like to bring the conversation over to talking about what kind of metrics should we revise as we're teaching in a very different learning environment. I think we need a wider range of metrics. I understand what you're saying about the tool, and I'm not advocating to completely abandon it, but I would like us to look at what our goals are going to be in light of our need in a couple different areas. One is academics, how to counteract the learning loss that comes with a situation like this because of all of the trauma, all of the context, all of the transitions that COVID has brought to us. And I have a few suggestions along those lines. Assessing virtual learning, assessing attendance and engagement, prioritizing our most at-risk populations. And I think that looking at modifying some of how we gauge our data, for example, what we want for a graduation rate in this particular situation. Also, maybe the timeline that we evaluate some of these goals. So maybe some of the goals will stay for a full year, like the graduation rate. Maybe we should think about some half-year performance goals. In other words, how we handled virtual learning over a few months. Because it may not, I mean, we're in a changeable situation. It may not stay the entire year, and we need to see how we're doing. One of the priorities for me would be to lower our dropout rate, and to do that by increasing access for advanced studies, especially in late middle school, but in other places too. The district is doing a good job of increasing access to AP courses, and we should continue doing that. That's one of the goals from the last year. It's good, it's an important goal. I think we should keep it. But we should also think about access to those AP courses in terms of advanced courses and student access to those advanced courses, like advanced math, like advanced English, that lead into being able to work in those AP courses comfortably. I'd also like us to really look at English language learners. Right now, well, according to 2018-2019, they have the highest dropout rate in the district. And I think prioritizing some of those supports are critical on two levels. One, it's just critical in general. Two, they're very at risk in this particular learning situation. To sum up, I'd like us to think about working in buckets for goals, so as not to proliferate goals all over the place, but to think academics, social emotional learning and educational support, and equity. And of course, look at all of this with an equity lens. The bottom line is, I think we need to see and think about these goals by thinking about education and the district in terms of protecting the district, fiscally, academically, protecting our students, protecting our faculty, protecting our staff, ensuring our stability in all of the areas I just named, stimulating education as best we can, and preparing students to return after the pandemic is over. And I have lots of little suggestions, but I think that overarching view is really important.
That was great, Anne. Anything else? Would you like to sit here?
That's all. No,
No,
I trust your leadership.
Thank you, Ann. That was very good.
There's a couple
Thank you.
hands up, Lou.
Okay, what hands do we have up? Because I can't see the hands.
See Sharon and Jen.
Sharon first, then Jen. President Kottman, you have the floor. No? Sharon, are you shaking me off? Okay. Jen McCosey, do you have the floor?
I just wanted to say that was like an amazing summary, and thanks, Anne. Thanks for being so short with it, and that was really clear. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. You're most welcome.
I can't see hands that are up, so does anyone else have any comments before we move on to the next board member? Okay, not hearing any. Paulette Woods, the floor is yours.
Okay. I like where you started off when you said very clearly our goal should be equity and the CLRI and fiscal solvency. But the purpose of education, we always said, was to put the children and the families first. That's where we always started off. And then the next thing we always said was that the purpose of a child getting an education is to come out employable, career ready, college ready, so they can contribute to our society and sustain themselves. I think we have to rethink in this environment how we deliver education. Obviously, right now, education is being delivered in the kitchens of the families' home. The parents are teaching. It's out in the community. It's not in our school buildings right now. So I think we have to look at this issue that a lot of our children are not learning with the parents having to try to supervise them or teach them. Our English language learners are struggling. Our children with disabilities, IEPs, are having a very difficult time. So I think we have to rethink education and put in the community setting opportunities for them to have one-on-one assistance at like the 48 sites for that program we just signed up for. The parents are saying, my kid isn't going to make it online. Can I go to this community center where somebody can work with my child one-on-one? Can I go to the church setting and they will work with my child one-on-one? I think we have to accept the fact that we're going to have to deliver education in the community where COVID has put it. Equity. I want every child to get an education. We keep saying that. So that means right now, preschool, kindergarten, and first grades don't have the equipment. They don't have computers. They don't have hotspots. And a lot of people in our community are saying they don't have that spectrum. They don't have, some of them don't even have electricity. Equity for me means we have to know that every child has the equipment to get an education, that the teachers are giving them materials and online, and we have to have a goal of moving. Children have to be able to come back to the schools, which means my next biggest issue is safety, that the school buildings are clean, safe, and our teachers and our students are safe. I still want to go through each of these buildings myself and see that they're doing something, that the air filters are quality, they're cleaning. I want our kids to come back safe. My other thing simply is we're not going to do anything if we're not solvent. So I think our we have to look at, again, protecting our fund balance, working on that agreement with the City of Buffalo, making sure that if our fund balance does run out eventually, that the City of Buffalo is prepared to do deficit funding to keep the school solvent. I think we have to work and make sure that we don't continue this proliferation and saturation of charter schools. It's just taking too much away and from the public education of our 45,000 children who are already in the public schools and in our charters. And I think we have to look at areas that we can cut back, as we've been talking about overtime. And with the emphasis on children and families first, I think we have to look at every grant that we have, Title I's, et cetera, and make sure that the money is going directly to services for the children, not for just show programs or staffing or just at more administrative costs. I want us to get bang for the buck. So more monitoring of our resources, cutting expenses, and rethinking education so it actually delivers to all of these children in a viable, one-on-one, emotionally supportive way. Those are my goals.
Thank you, Board Member Wood.
Oh, and MBE, everybody getting a share of these contracts. We haven't made a lot of progress on that. I haven't thrown it out yet either.
Okay. Do I see any hands up? No?
I just want to make sure Ms. Woods knows, and we've spoken before, the buildings are clean. We have all the necessary cleaning products, the masks, the disinfecting wipes, the hand sanitizer. So the buildings are absolutely clean. I don't want anyone out there thinking that they're not. So
right.
They absolutely are, Ms. Woods. Thank you very much for that.
Start my tours then. Thank you.
President Kottman, the floor is yours.
It'll be long because I think this board, as I look at what the board members listed, it was clear that there are certain common themes. I just want to go over a couple of things that I want to make sure that we at through our various committees this year. And to make sure that we include some of them, at least one or two of them, in our objectives and goals for the superintendent. I'd like to see more transparency. Many of you know, I've been cleaning out my office, trying to get through all these years of paperwork, and I have found some great reports that were a regular report that the board was constantly being given, and as a result, the board did not have a lot of questions that they currently have. So I'm going to, an example of a great report we would receive once a month would be an attendance report. It was for teachers as well as for students. Okay, and I think that's important. And the transparency piece is that we post these reports. I think that the accountability piece comes as a result of being transparent. So if we have a deficit in attendance the previous month, can look to the next month, or staff can start working and making sure that they are proactive and not as reactive as we've been. And that's the accountability piece. I am concerned about these vaccinations and children not being booted off because we are about to go into our Vets Day. And Darren, has that day been extended?
No, it has not. It is still
Okay.
going to be. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Huge. You understand what I mean? Kids
Correct.
being kicked off and they're trying to attend. So we got to work with that. So our at-risk population is a primary focus, and I am going to focus on STEM this year in a big way. I feel that we need to do more in that area. We have a lot in that area, but I'd like to see more National Spaceflight Program awardees every year. At-risk population, and I want to talk about internships, increasing our internships as well as especially under communications. That is a common thread in these conversations about getting the word out and talking. And so with that, I'll turn that back over to you. Reiterate these points. However, I would like to see the amount of the food distribution increased. I would like to see it, evening hours put in place. Parents are saying that they cannot leave work, but they want the food. Staff is ready and willing sure that they can do evening hours. So it's not a hassle for the staff. We need to implement that immediately. Parents cannot get the food that they need, and people are struggling right now financially. So that's going to be one of the things that I'd like to see incorporated in that. Okay, so Mr. Petrucci, I'm turning it back over to you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone. I made copious notes. I will type them all up and try to give them a summary. The one thing that I would like to do with the board's permission, if anyone wishes to help me, is to modify this document to be reflective of our present situation. Because there are certain things that should be, again, modified because they don't pertain in COVID. And again, that I think that reflects the will of the board as well. There were some suggestions also that the interim evaluation I thought may have had some merit too. Also, Dr. Rivera, particularly if we're going to, because it's constantly changing. And the situation that we have in September might be very different from the situation that we have in January or February. SED could change again because, we're constantly standing on shifting sands as the dictates that we get from SED or governance from the governor's office for the state health department are constantly changing, always changing. I will type these up and give copies of the notes to everybody. I'm willing to work on this. If anyone wants to volunteer to help me, please let me know afterwards. Yes, Ms. Gottman.
Oh, you've gone over the priority part. I would like to have an idea, and you were very clear in categorizing how to structure the metric piece, which I knew you were going to be, because when I made the statement, there are people on this board that can do that very well. I was talking about you, so you proved me right one more time, okay? And so I think it was clear, those 5 points that she brought out. And I think that all of these obviously will fall under these. The communication piece, there needs to be the social emotional piece, and the ultimate, the concern for me, trying to set a specific without knowing previously what has happened. Darren, when do we do our first set of testing for our children?
As far as the ELA and math assessments?
Or DIBELS or whatever we do.
Oh, we start that. We do a beginning of year DIBELS. We do a middle of year, end of year DIBELS. Are you talking about grade wise? Like ELA and math assessments start in grade 3.
Yeah, I understand that. So you have a DIBELS report from last year. So you would have, you're telling me you have the beginning, the middle, and the end, right?
Right. Yeah, BOY, MOY, and EOY. Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of data. So at least we know where we can start with, and you've already done it this year?
I believe they're probably in the process of doing their beginning of year assessments. I'm not sure that they're all complete. I believe they're in the beginning stages.
I think, and Ann, help me out with this, I think based on that information, that we should be able to take a deeper dive into that and at least come up with a idea of where we are. We may have gone backwards, we may have moved forward, but at least there's some data out there. What's your assessment of that?
Well, I think that Chief Academic Officer Ann Botticelli mentioned that that's part of the point of these assessments, and Dr. Brown Hall can correct me if I misperceived that. But I think that's what they're collecting now, is to get a sense of where students are at, and they can compare it to the end of year assessments. Is that correct? In terms both with the DIBELS and what they did at the end of the year, you can look at both chunks of data.
Correct.
Okay,
right.
So we should have that.
That's what they're doing to see where, we have to meet students where they're at and then build the programming. So absolutely, that's what they're doing for it.
Yeah.
Darren, will this be part of that October 7th presentation or not?
I'm not sure. We're still developing that, and Dr. Cash is still in the process of getting that developed, of what all the metrics will be, and then he'll be talking with the Health Advisory Council on what additional metrics we should be looking at to say if we are going to do a gradual phase-in of a hybrid model. So there'll be a lot put into that October 7th presentation for the board to look at and consider.
Thank you.
Mrs. Cotman, you're muted.
Ms. Common, you're muted, and then Terrence, you're up next.
Sorry, if we had that information from last year, we could write some goals, you know, may not be the same way or increase by 7% or whatever, but we may have to take a step backwards to go forward. So I'm curious to know what that is. That's all I wanted to know. To that. Thank you.
Yeah, it could be used as a benchmark, you know, last year.
Benchmark. Okay, yeah, maybe that's what we should do. Use that as a benchmark.
Good points. Mr. Hurd, you had your hand up?
Yes, sir. One thing I'm curious to see what other districts are using as since the COVID virus has infiltrated our communities. What other districts are doing in the Big Five about the evaluations, so we can try to look into what other districts are doing, so that, not saying that we miss anything, but just saying that we can try to work together on this, so it can be just a collaborative effort. Second thing is, I was waiting to hear your report, Lou, what you feel. And I believe that the last part of this I missed was,
You missed it.
what are we doing? You know, individual board members, are we supposed to speak on that also?
Yeah, Terrence, I thought that was in part of your report. Real quick, let me address your first comment. I was starting to just search on the internet. I didn't see much in New York State. I saw a report from the Texas Association of School Boards and the Massachusetts School Board Association, where they had put out some guidelines with respect to evaluating superintendents during COVID. I haven't seen anything directly about New York State. I'll continue to look to see what else, or in other states as well. So some of the stuff is starting to come out there, but we're early in the process. Terrence, a lot of what, I mean, when I sat down was this, I tried to kind of compile and make a compendium of all the different things that I've heard sitting in this seat, all the different things that we are going forward. You know, my big thing would be prioritizing, particularly with our special needs populations, you know, our ELLs, some of our 611, 811, our kids, they're in those classrooms, trying to get them the type of instruction that they need, because that is what I hear from parents over and over again, is the great difficulties that they're having with this remote learning model, and just things that we could do, whatever that vehicle looks like. But right now, I know that many parents of children of our ELL and our special needs populations, and also some of our younger children, are struggling. They truly are.
Wow.
And you guys really hit upon many of the points that I would have raised as well. Yes, President
Can I conclude about the equity piece?
Absolutely.
I think it's important, particularly in this environment that we're in, that every child's needs are being addressed and met. I think we need to make sure that included in that evaluation is the equity lens. The only other additional thing I would add to that were brought out is to make sure that we talk about the financial responsibility piece. I think you hit it pretty good. And the tool. So are you guys saying that you want to change this tool? There's one on the state's website. What are you saying about this tool? You said it was outdated.
Well,
What is the
it needs
board
to
feel?
so
Modify it.
modify.
Just
Correct,
modify it.
Kathy.
Okay, so you do know that New York State provides a superintendent evaluation tool. You are aware of that, right?
Yes.
Freely accessible on the website. All right, just making sure. Lou, when is your committee?
Darren, when is my committee?
Your committee is October 7th.
That's what I thought.
Remember, we moved student achievement to October 7th also. So those are the two committees on that evening.
Right, so we have like a good week. Lou, whatever I can do, I'll be happy to participate with this or whatever you need me to do. I do want you to know that since I've been on here, I did reach out to Catherine Collins, Dr. Regent, her to assist us in regards to the letter, and I sent her the letter from the state in regards to vaccinations. The last thing that I want to do at this point, particularly since it took me 30 days to get a visit to my doctor. I've had to wait 30 days to get to my doctor. And I can't even imagine what a parent who has to work, old children, is going through. And so I don't know if it was adequately communicated to our children, to our parents, excuse me, was going to be the case come September the 25th of the month. I don't know if that was communicated to them. And I'm very concerned about them being held accountable for something that was not communicated to them clearly. I understand the law, but I also understand that you've also waived a lot of guidelines under COVID. And I don't want kids who are sitting there, students who are sitting there to learn, being booted out because their parents have not had the opportunity to get a vaccination and they're not even coming into the school building. That's a little redundant to me. So I'll see what I can do. I'll talk to the commissioner about it as well. I mean, give them a break, give them time, give them a new date to have all of them in, do something, but please do that to our children.
So what I will say to the public that is listening, I believe what Mrs. Cotman is asking is that we exhaust all measures to talk to the commissioner, the Department of Health, about our students being exempted. We are not going to willingly break the law. That is not what she's suggesting. She's suggesting that we exhaust all avenues of trying to keep the students in the school building. All right, I just want to make it clear to all the public.
Not in the building, on the computer.
In the remote learning.
You know what I mean? You know,
I
on the computer.
Yeah.
Jennifer's hand is up, by the way, Lou.
Yes, Board Member Makosi, I see your hand. The floor is yours.
I'm curious, and I did get a couple texts actually during this meeting. When we have the work sessions, when we were in person, it was always the opportunity for someone to come in and question or be able to comment if it pertained to the actual topic. Is that option available during the work sessions virtually? Have we explored that? I don't know.
I don't think that we have. I don't know.
We would not have done it for this meeting, however, because this is a special board meeting.
Not this meeting. They were inquiring because they go to the, few people go to the work sessions. And I don't think
the October 7th meeting. I'm sorry, Jen, you're talking about the October 7th meeting they wish to participate?
Right. I mean, and I wanted to put out there too that I don't think the public was aware fully because we wouldn't, people would come into the board meetings. When you have a work session, if you pay attention to what the topics that are being spoken, the agenda, you have the opportunity to come listen, comment, and ask questions during that session. So for the lack of participation over the years that I've been on the board, I don't think it's been clear. I say it as much as I can, but I do, since we're doing this virtually, I don't know if that opportunity has presented itself. And I actually got some requests to see whether or not that's possible during virtual or not. Not saying we have to, but the question is on the table.
Okay. All right, Jennifer, we'll look into that. I know that in the past that if there was a particular topic where we had a community group, an expert, a concerned individual that wanted to come and provide enlightenment, guidance, knowledge, that the board was deferential and would allow them to speak. So we will look into it, Jen. We'll let you know before the 7th, okay? One more thing, Board Member Scott was unavailable tonight. He had a conflict because of the late notice. He tried desperately to make things work for this evening. We were going back and forth, but we did have some exchange. I did want to put his comment on the record just so that we're all aware about how at-large member Scott feels about some of these things. The one thing he did say was that I'm becoming more convinced that we need to begin in-person learning for students with disabilities, ELs, and our youngest learners in the near future. I'd like to see this integrated into the evaluation as a priority for implementing most equitable instruction in the time of this COVID-19 pandemic. So I just wanted to let people know that Mr. Scott was actively trying to be part of this, but he had a conflict. He was unable to, but he was exchanging, going back and forth and offering commentary. Do we have any other comments or suggestions?
To say hello to our Hispanic community as they celebrate National Hispanic Heritage Month.
Okay.
How's that? A little bit. I know. Hola.
Very good, Sharon. So next meeting will be all in Spanish. Any other commentary? Any other questions? Now, this just, you know, this is a developing thing. So if someone has some additional concerns or comments, please let me know, okay? It's going to be iterative. It's going to change and evolve. I will get working on these 2 documents. If anyone else has any other comments, if anyone wants to help, if anyone has anything else they would like me to know or to do, please let me know. Yes, Mr. Hurd.
While you were saying that, I always thought about the Buffalo Public School putting a robust type of platform out to the community about the things that are offered in the Buffalo Public Schools to make Buffalo Public School the school of choice. I believe that if we can get more mailings out, maybe more media prints or slots on radio stations to talk about our programs that we offer, I think parents will decide to make Buffalo Public School the school of choice for their children and suit their needs. So that's one of the things I'd like to add to it. And I think that, that type of advertising will go a long ways. It goes a long way in business. This is a $1 billion corporation that we're running, and I think we need to address it as such.
I appreciate comments, Mr. Hurd. Terrence, my old expression to parents would be to go visit the schools, because I know it's difficult at the present time, but people oftentimes had a gross mischaracterization of what the Buffalo Public Schools looked like. And when they went in and visited, oftentimes they were more than pleasantly surprised that we have beautiful buildings, we have great staff, we have great students, and they were always impressed when they took a tour of the building. So it really convinced them. I think our community schools are going a long way to help promote our buildings, our schools, our people, our students as well.
Ms. Petrucci, I was in one of your buildings the other day, South Park, and I had someone with me from out of state, and they were just talking about how beautiful the building is and seeing the architecture here in the Buffalo schools, and they're just wondering, they can just do a visit of all the schools. I said, not right now with the COVID going on, but just to look and see the different, what Buffalo has to offer within education. I think that you're correct in that manner. But in another sense, that a lot of our parents who's doing the remote learning with their children or grandparents, they're learning also, and they're picking up on education. They would like to take more classes, with the kids, just to learn some stuff that they're learning. It's been very influential, not just to our children, but to also the parents.
I know that
he was quarantined. I hope he didn't bring any germs into our schools, Mr. Hurd. Our schools are clean.
They're clean, yes, and we would do all of the subjects.
Germs in our schools from out-of-state people.
No, we're good. I know that.
Pulling your leg. That's pulling your leg.
I know at Miss McCosey's, one of her schools, Saditas, used to have a program where parents went to school and learned English while their children were at school at the same time. It was a very successful program for the district. Yeah, they did some cool things. Anything else, board members? Could I have a motion?
So moved.
Ms. Commons, second by Ms. McCosey. Thank you. A motion to adjourn. Any objections? If we stay till midnight, we get pizza. No? Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. I greatly appreciate all your time and effort out of your evening. This is providing some great guidance for my committee as we move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you,
Good night,
everyone.
everybody.